On the morning of the 1st of February this year, as Myanmar was set to hold its first session of parliament with a newly elected government, the army took over. A coup that some saw coming, many others didn't. The army, led by this man, Min Aung Hlaing, claimed fraud in recent elections when Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi's party swept to power. What followed was a bloody crackdown as people rose up to protest their mandate that was stolen right before their eyes.
Nighttime arrests on the 1st of February. Democratic leaders locked up after winning an election landslide. Among those carted away, Nobel Peace Prize winner and de facto political leader Aung San Suu Kyi. The junta's leader said the army intervened after protests over alleged election fraud. He cited Myanmar's 2008 constitution, drafted by the army, which includes the power to suspend government. The army is always there for the citizens. It always acts according to the law and obeys the Constitution of 2008. The army held the election so that all the parties could have justice. Immediately, more protests swept the country, and in late February, a general strike. That didn't stop the military government from arresting thousands of people. Demonstrators were killed, and some protests became violent. Since then, the democracy movement has suffered severe setbacks. Aung San Suu Kyi was charged with a variety of offenses ranging from illegal use of walkie-talkies to subversion. While some activists took up arms, making common cause in rural areas with militant members of persecuted ethnic groups like the Karen, who had long been at war with the state. DW spoke with journalist A. Min Thant earlier this year about what that could mean.
In many ways, Myanmar has been in civil war for the last 70 or so years. I think what we're really seeing now is the beginning of an all-out war in which even the city centers are affected and no one's really safe. Whereas before, people were safer, especially if they were in urban areas.
It's far from clear what the international community can do. The military leadership has already survived years of international sanctions and pariah status on the world stage. With democratic leaders sidelined, the bloodshed seems almost certain to go on.
To Hong Kong next, where all democratic protests continued to be constrained by the national security law. In the 18 months since it's been in force, at least 150 people have been arrested, including well-known Hong Kongers like media tycoon Jimmy Lai and student leader Joshua Wong. The crackdowns on freedoms in their city has left many Hong Kongers contemplating their future. Should they stay or should they go? Do they protest or do they move on with their lives as best as they can? But in the midst of this gloom, there has been some welcome distraction. A new boy band that's redefining the Cantonese pop Hong Kong was famous for in the 80s.
Hundreds of people gather in a shopping mall in Hong Kong. But this time, they're not protesting. They're super fans of Mirror, the latest boy band sensation. Today, 3 of Mirror's 12 members are making an appearance. After all the social upheaval in Hong Kong, it's a scene few could have imagined. A lot of bad things happened in Hong Kong in the past few years. Many citizens were upset for a long time, but there was no emotional outlet. With Mirror, Hong Kong has become a lively place again. Pro-democracy protests, a freedom-shrinking national security law, and a clampdown on activists. All have dominated life in Hong Kong. And on top of the political turmoil is a pandemic that still has no end in sight. For many, Mirror has become a welcome escape. Besides relief, the group also offers belief that the city's pop culture is still thriving. Some say their music has marked a new era of Canto pop. For a city that feels so beaten down, suddenly there's something people can feel proud of again. It's a local group. Of course, we need to support them. They represent our spirit. Hong Kongers should support Hong Kongers. The band came out of a TV talent competition. Episode after episode, dozens of contestants gave their all to advance to the next round. Their persistence captured the hearts of people of all ages. The boys worked hard for their dreams, and that's a mirror of our young people today. Many of them feel very disillusioned. I think the boy band can encourage young people to endeavor again. For some, the group holds up a mirror to Hong Kongers, telling them they can still have dreams.
In February, India passed new rules that essentially allow the government to determine what people can and can't post on social media. It was a move some activists likened to digital authoritarianism. This was evident just a few months later in April as the country buckled under the strain of a second COVID wave. As Indians shared pleas for help and information on availability of beds, oxygen and other medical supplies, the government asked Twitter to take down posts criticizing its response. Tweets such as this one from Member of Parliament from the opposition Congress party, Revant Reddy, where he pointed to the collapse of the healthcare system in India due to the more than 200,000 cases being recorded daily. Minister in the state of West Bengal, Moloy Ghotok, lamented that the government had underplayed the coronavirus situation in the country. West Bengal was one of the Indian states worst affected by the rising cases. The government didn't officially say why it had asked Twitter to take down these critical tweets. But I asked one of India's leading voices on the spread of online misinformation and hate, Prateek Sinha, if he thought the move was justified.
These were all very genuine criticism with no element of misinformation or hate, and does not at all meet the standards of Twitter as a platform to police these tweets.
So is the government then using its powers to block dissent on social media?
Absolutely. All of these are tweets which would be considered critical of the government, and the government is forcing platforms, and unfortunately the platforms are buckling as well, but the government is forcing platforms to adhere to certain lines where dissent is curbed.
But what about social media companies themselves? What part do they play in keeping the democratic spirit alive? A very important one, according to Philippines journalist Maria Ressa. She is a joint winner of the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize. When I spoke to her in October after the award was announced, she explained why social media companies in her country are responsible for twisting facts and how ultimately that is affecting democracy. Here is a part of that interview.
I think that the rollback of democracy globally and the tearing apart of the shared reality has been, it's because of tech. It's because news organizations lost our gatekeeping powers to technology, and technology took the revenues that we used to have, along with, they took the powers, but they abdicated responsibility. And I think this is a wake-up call, and that's happening not just for journalists with the Nobel spotlight, but also you are seeing many more sophisticated discussions about what exactly is wrong, that we're moving finally away from content moderation to where we should be, which is algorithmic distribution, algorithmic amplification, and how it has insidiously manipulated human beings on the platform.
You have been at Facebook, you have been a part of many panels at Facebook that has looked at just things like these. And I mentioned Facebook because it is very popular in the Philippines. What would you like to see happen with big tech like Facebook?
I think the core of the problem is that all the social media platforms treat lies and facts identically. They're data points, right? And the research has now shown us that on social media, lies laced with anger and hate spread faster and further than facts. So you can say that the world's largest delivery platform of news is actually biased against facts and biased against journalism. And as a result of that fundamental choice that the tech platforms have made, we have cheap armies on social media rolling back democracy in 81 countries around the world. That is from Oxford University's Computational Propaganda Research Project. So here's the other thing that dawned on me, that the last time a journalist was given this honor was in 1936. He wasn't able to go accept the honor in person in Oslo because he was in a Nazi concentration camp. He languished in a Nazi concentration camp. And so I think that's the signal that the Nobel Committee is telling us again, that we are kind of at this existential moment where we could lose our rights. We could lose democracy if we lose the facts.